Here we have a trusty Ford Galaxy. Very similar car to the Seat Alhambra and the VW Charan. In fact, basically you're the same vehicle but just different badges as far as I'm concerned. Now, where can we start with this vehicle? Well, first thing up, it's a great seating position, great driving position, but I must admit you do feel like you're going to fall off the seat if you brake too hard. It is a strange seated position. In fact, I feel kind of like I'm sitting on a tractor. The vision around the vehicle is pretty good. The rear view vision is quite seriously obstructed by the headrests. They basically occupy most of the rim of the rear view. In fact, the middle one is actually taking up most of it. But the side mirrors, they're big enough, but they're way too low down. They should be further up here. They're too low in my mind. The vision around the side windows is pretty good. There's no blockages there. Now, the steering wheel here does obstruct the instrument cluster. Change the steering wheel, many might say, but the thing is, what if you want that driving position? It's not that hard to create a car whereby the instrument cluster is visible at all times, no matter what setting you have your steering wheel at. This car here is the 6-speed manual, and you really do need the 6 gears on this vehicle. It does seem to plod along quite nicely. It's got a bit of a serious wobble there, to be quite honest, and considering this vehicle hasn't even done 75,000 miles, I find that a little bit concerning. It's unlikely to be worn anti-roll bar linkages, so I think basically what you've got is you've got a bad shock absorber situation. Not bad as in defective, but bad as in design. I would not want to be driving down the motorway at 60, 70 miles an hour and have to swerve lane in this vehicle. One, I think the vehicle would turn over, and two, when you've got a vehicle that is so reactive like that in a negative way, it counter affects your intentions when you're driving. So basically this car would bounce all over the place, and it'd be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to control. To be fair with you, I wouldn't even consider buying a car that reacted like that. I don't know whether these cars are going to be available with a stiffer suspension, but if you could get a sport suspension on this vehicle, I would go for that without a shadow of doubt. In fact, to be quite honest, this car bounces about so much that I would seriously recommend not buying it in the first place. It amazes me that the manufacturer would make such a high vehicle with such a dodgy shock absorber situation. I mean, how on earth can you control a vehicle in a swerve or a skid or a flat tire when it bounces around like that? I mean, it's disgusting. It's a death trap. There's no other words for it. Now, I'm doing 50 miles an hour. I'm in top gear. Seems to pull along quite nicely. Nothing wrong with this at all. It's quite nice nipping down the motorway. There's a lot of wind resistance with this vehicle. It's a very, very, very non-aerodynamic vehicle. To be quite honest, the more I'm in this vehicle, the more I'm going off it. There's many reasons. Obviously the shocks which I've picked up, the seating position. My back's aching now. Driving this vehicle for less than half an hour. I do feel like I'm perched on this seat rather than in a proper relaxed driving position. The brakes, well, they're not that great, I have to admit. I just don't feel like I'm in control of this vehicle. I feel like it's got the sensation of like sitting on the top of a double-decker bus in an armchair, an uncomfortable armchair, and you're trying to control this thing with a 30-foot steering column. It's not a good vehicle, this, to be fair. I think Ford have got a lot of improvements to make with this vehicle. I think anybody watching this video is not going to be a member of a fan club as such, because it's not that type of vehicle. Anybody watching this is most likely thinking about buying one. Well, to be honest, they do serve a purpose. They do have a lot of room. They will get a lot of people around in comfort. You can even get a lot of stuff and luggage in the back. But to be fair, I don't know what the specifications are on this model. If you can get a sports or a firm suspension, then happy days. But if you can't, I personally would walk away from this one as quick as possible. This is, in my mind, a potentially dangerous car to drive at speed. See, front wheel spinning all over the place. Right, if you're thinking about buying one of these, I would seriously reconsider it. My advice to you would be to take it for a test drive in the wet to see what it is like. It is absolutely awful. Obviously the Seat Alhambra and the VW Charan are the same basic vehicle intrinsically, if you like. My advice would be to test one of those, and you definitely want to have a look at this shock absorber situation. It's not justifiable to say, well, these shocks are like this because it's designed for ferrying people around this car and it's to make it more comfortable. It's rubbish. This vehicle is not comfortable. This vehicle is very uncomfortable, and to be fair, I can't wait to get out of it. On the engine wise, it does seem to pull along very nicely. You know, it's not struggling to drive. The 6 gears is a must, but it's just everything seems to be ergonomically wrong with this vehicle. But on a different note, the interior is very plainly laid out. It's big fat buttons that couldn't be easier to get to be fair. But there's a lot of features about this vehicle which are wrong. Everything's blocked here, the seating position's funny, the wing mirrors are way too low, too far back, shocks are terrible, the brakes aren't that clever, and there's a real ropey, anaesthetised feeling between me and the steering wheel. Personally, don't mean to repeat myself, but if you're thinking about buying one of these, I would have to say don't. I'm going to give this vehicle a score out of 10, and it's going to be a 3.